This video is dedicated to all the fallen. They should not grow old as we are left grow old. Age should not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we shall remember them. Wear your poppies with pride. Right, what we have behind us is a 04 Golf, and we have an NCT fail sheet. So we're going to go through it and see what it needs, and then obviously film it. What do we need? We are missing a fuel cap. Simple enough. Horn's not working. Anti-roll bars and drop links. Simple enough. 2 ball joints. So that's most of the stuff on the front. It says the handbrake has failed because the caliper is seized. And this is very interesting here. It is saying front torsion bar broken or damaged. Now, there is no torsion bar in the front of this. Well, I suppose it depends where you're from. You might call the anti-roll bar a torsion bar, but we don't over here, so it shouldn't be written as torsion bar. As it turns out, what's actually happened is the spring has broke, not a torsion bar. There's a torsion bar in the back, but I mean, they're huge, they don't really break. But as it turns out, the front spring is broke, but he's marked it down as a torsion bar. Anyway, so we're going to need 2 new springs. We're going to need a rear caliper. We're going to need anti-roll bars, drop links, and ball joints. So, let's get stuck in. Right, hopefully you can see this. What we're going to do in the first part, I think, is we're going to change the drop link, the D bushings, which are just down there, and the ball joint. And we'll do the rest in other parts. Now, this one is plastic, sometimes they're metal, it doesn't really matter. If you've got a plastic one, you get a metal one, it's not the end of the world. But what I would suggest is, whatever you do on this side, always replace on the far side. Now, we have to do this for the NCT anyway, but I would be doing it regardless. Don't just change one thing on one side, because you'll have an imbalance and the car won't handle properly. It's just best just to replace the things on both sides. Makes it nice and even and can get you out of trouble. Simple, really. So what we're going to do is we'll whip this off. It's 2 16 mils. Now, this is an Allen key, if I remember correctly, or a spline, I can't remember, but sometimes the air gun allows you to get it off without actually doing that. So let's see. It's where the old air gun really does come in handy, if you have the right size socket on it. Now, have the right size socket on it. There we go. Lovely. I actually, that time, that wasn't going to work. So what I actually did there, I don't know if you saw it, I just angled this to force that to stop. And inside there is an Allen key. I can't remember. I think you do get a couple of bolts with these, I'm not sure, but keep the bolts in. I haven't got the bits yet, so that's why I'm taking everything off. But as you can see, that bushing in there, or that rod, should be nice and tight, and as you can see, it's moving a lot. So now we'll just whip off these 13 mil bolts for the bottom of the ball joints. Take that off, that's obviously the captive nuts. Right, there we go. Now, what we should be able to do is hopefully just push this out. Might have to turn the wheel, sometimes it's easier. But on this one, can't actually get it out. Sometimes you can. They do come out without disconnecting the track rod end, but it looks like we're going to have to disconnect the track rod end just to make it easy. Not the end of the world, it's only one more bolt. So yeah, we'll disconnect that. We'll just clean the threads first to give it every opportunity to come out, because these can spin and you have to get an Allen key up there or a torque, and it can be quite annoying. So hopefully we can just whip this out with the air gun. Just make our life that little bit easier. There we go, lovely. That just comes out. Just put the nut back on there. And even at that, it doesn't, but it will once we get the top bolt off. So we need to whip off the actual top bolt just there where my finger is. Looks like a 19mm, but most probably knowing the Germans, it's 18. So I've got an 18. See if I'm right. Oh yeah! Bring it on! Now what I've got to do is, unfortunately you're not going to be able to see this, because I have to turn it this way to try and get, because as I'm pushing with the spanner I want this to lock, because it's just going to make it easier to undo. And I think it's undoing. But again, what we don't want is the whole thing to spin. Because if the whole thing spins, it's just a lot harder to get it out. Let's get some vice grips on the bottom of it. Because you really can't see what I'm doing, I'm only undoing that bolt with the spanner. I'm going to turn the camera off, and once I get it off, we'll take off the board joint. Right, one board joint off. As you can see, I couldn't really film it, but there is going to be a point where the bolt hits the top or the bottom of the CV joint. So you have to hit this down. As soon as you hit this down, that's when it starts spinning. So you get some needle nose vice grips like that. Make sure when you do clamp it, you don't actually clamp it on the rubber, because it'll just spin. Make sure you get it on the metal. If you have to rip the rubber out of the way to get it on the metal, and then just spin it. Takes a few minutes, but at least you get it off. So that's come off. You can undo the middle CV joint if you want to get a little bit more room. You can just wedge it out with a screwdriver. It's really up to yourself. You don't need to, but it's up to yourself. Now, hopefully you can see this next bit. It's time for the debushing. Now we've actually disconnected the track rod end. Not that you really need to do the debushing to do it, disconnect this, but you can just get out of your way. The debushing is right here where my finger is. It's a 13mm nut that holds on the bracket, so we need to whip that off. I'm just using a 1/4 inch drive with a long 13mm on it, just to get it in, and then hopefully, if I get it in the way of the camera, you can see that. Just crack it. Once it's cracked, use the old air tools. 1/4 inch air tool. Easy. Just take it off. So there's our little bracket, and there's our 13mm bolts. And that's it, drop everything on the floor. And here is, that's it, get all crap in your mouth as well. Here is our debushing. Hello. Yeah, simple as that really. Now I have to wait for the parts, and then we can bang everything back together. Sorted. Sorted. Right, I think I'm just going to kind of do this in all one video, so kind of do the springs and everything together. We've got to take the back caliper down, and the reason is the caliper is working, but the handbrake side of things is seized. Now I'm going to show you the back of it, and I know I'm going to get people saying, well, you can free them out. You can. You can free them out, but they only free out for a couple of weeks, couple of months at best, and they go back to it again. It's just a pointless exercise, I can assure you. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the back of it, and we'll see exactly what's going on. So I'll show you the back of a good one first. As you can see, the gap between the actual handbrake part here and where the cable begins, you can see there's obviously, you know, 3 odd inches there. It's a big gap. As you can see, there is essentially no gap here. This should be all the way up. I can actually move it all the way up there. And it was pushed all the way down, and it stays down. So it means this part in here is actually seized. It's just one of them things. It does happen, especially when you don't use the car. You can take this bolt off and free it out and put it back on, but it doesn't last very long. The spring is also missing, so we've got no spring here either. It's just best just to replace it, I can assure you. Just completely, just bite the bullet, replace it. You're not really worried about it after that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove the handbrake cable now, just because it's a little bit easier to do it now why the caliper's kind of on. So just very carefully pull this little clip out, which actually holds the cable onto the caliper carrier, or the handbrake carrier. Now what I should be able to do is just push this down. It's gonna most probably stick. Hopefully it does stick. It'll be the easiest way out of it. If it doesn't, we'll just push this down like that till it's more or less all the way down. Get some pliers and pull the handbrake cable up and out, just like that. As we can see, it doesn't want to go up again. Handbrake cable is now kind of in the way. Now, that handbrake cable is out. Lovely. That should just pull straight out of there now. Lovely. Right, I'm also going to disconnect the actual the flexible line that goes into the caliper. Before I do though, I'm going to squeeze the line so no fluid comes out with these special pliers that lock. They don't do any damage to anything, but they stop all the fluid coming out. A 13mm. Now this is a banjo bolt, so you have to be very careful. In other words, there's a hole in the middle of this bolt and there's 2 copper washers each side. So you can snap these very easy, and if they're hard to come off, they'll snap. And you don't get the banjo bolt with the new caliper. So you have to be very careful. So what we're going to do is just now move that off to the side somewhere. And that's really it. All we've got to do now is undo the actual 2 nuts for the caliper. Oh yeah, and of course everything's spinning. Let's lift that up there. And we need a 15mm. Oh, can I hold it? Oh, I can hold it. Sometimes you need a 13 and a 15mm to undo these, but lucky enough I can hold the top one. But whether I can hold the bottom one's another thing. That seems to be still leaking for some reason, which it shouldn't be. Another one on. Now, I'd like to see you leak now. It still is. How are you leaking? Seriously. That's still leaking. That's unbelievable. Right, what I'm going to do is that's still leaking and I can't understand why. I'm going to push down the pedal and I'm going to wedge the pedal with a bar between the pedal and the seat. That will stop it from leaking. But I'm going to whip off this before I do that. Now when you're getting a caliper from the motor factories, you have to give your old caliper back. I'm taking this one in its place because this is a Volkswagen. There can be 2 or 3 different calipers and it's a nightmare. So I'm going to bring this one with me so I know I get the exactly same one, but I have to leave it there anyway, so it really doesn't make no odds. Once I get all the bits, we'll bang everything back on. Right, hopefully you can see that now. I'm not going to show it in this video because I've shown it on all my other videos, but obviously we need to take these out and grease them. Now I've done all that, and you need to make sure they also move, because if they seize they can cause uneven wear and all sorts, and damage pads, damage calipers, damage discs. So we have the new caliper. Now we have a slight problem in the sense we don't have the spring. It didn't come with the spring, so I'm gonna have to try and find one off an old caliper or something, or an old car or something, but I'll find it. Bloody annoying though, but it's just the way it goes. So we'll just put that in first. The 2 13mm, give them a nip. It's very simple, nothing to it. Right. Also, another good thing to do is just check your cable just to make sure it isn't actually seized. You can do that very easy. So that just should push straight up through. Now, I hope I should be able to do this with my hand. Push that down. Will it fit through there? No. So, just try and get the rubber out of the way. A bit more room. I can do it by hand because the caliper, every time I push this down, I'm moving the piston out of the caliper and it's not hitting the wheel yet. So that allows me to do it by hand. But if you pump it too many times, you won't be able to do it. So let's try and get it in quickly is the key. And there we go. Lovely. So there we go. Put the pin back to hold that in place. Lovely. Now, I had one. That's why it's always good to keep everything, you know, all the little bits off brakes when you're swapping them or anything, because you never know when you might need them again. So this should be fairly simple to get that on. That needs to be, let's look at the other side to get a reference, but that needs to be kind of, it needs to be like that. So why aren't you letting me do what I want you to do? Now there might be a left and a right spring, and I think I've got the wrong side spring and I've only got one. Oh, the joys. I think there is. This is the wrong side. Should be that way. So this isn't going to work. Now that is a pain. And my light's gone off. Right. So, great. I need to put another battery in that, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to see if I can get this spring on, turn the camera back on, and we'll continue. Right, can't find one, don't have one. Rang up the motor factors. It should be with it, but it isn't, and they don't have any down there. The NCT is on Monday and it's now Saturday, so there's nothing I can do. This is why, people, you shouldn't just book a car into someone for the last second to get it ready for the NCT, because there's nothing I can do with it now. This failed 3 weeks ago. It should have been into me 3 weeks ago, because then we could have sorted this stuff out. So there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. Whether this is going to work good enough, hopefully it might just spring back enough, because I mean there is a spring there, so hopefully it'll spring back enough for it to work and not work. If it doesn't, sweet, fuck all I can do about it. Anyway, so I put the brake pipe back on. Now you have to be careful, that is a banjo bolt. What you can do is loosen the bleed nipple a little bit, just to allow the fluid to come out, to kind of let it bleed by pressure, or gravity bleed should I say. So you can just loosen that a little bit, allow it to come out. Like I said, I've done loads of videos on how to bleed brakes, so I'm not going to go through it on this one, because we've still got a lot to do and a lot more could still go wrong. So that's the back brake. Let's get now the springs done. Right, I'm going to show you kind of I wasn't going to, but I said I'd kind of show you this method if you are on your own. There's loads of different ways of bleeding brakes, but I have this PVC pipe, like just a 2-inch pipe. It's really quite long, about the length of the car. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to bleed it on my own and just show you a way that you can do it without having expensive stuff. Hopefully you can see that now. Here's the bleed nipple. All I'm going to do is put this on the brake, and I'm going to push as hard on it as I possibly can, and at the same time open this bleed nipple So open this bleed nipple, push down all the way to the floor, There's just obviously a lot of air in it. Close it up, give it a few pumps. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Just move the camera a bit more maybe. You can see the pipe there in there now. Right, next thing is taking the shock off. A couple of ways of doing it, but on this one the easiest way is going to be taking this bottom bolt off first, leaving the top bolt on. It's an 18mm nut and bolt. So get a spanner on the other side. Lovely, and that can be seized, which it isn't, so it's not too bad. And there's a big kind of open-ended on this, so I can get away with hitting this bolt. Normally you can't, but on this one I can. Because as you can see, there's no thread right at the top, there's like a big mushroom. So that's now done. What we need to do is separate it from the actual shock, from the actual stub or hub. So make sure everything's out of the way. And because we haven't really put anything else on, I should just be able to hit on this, which will loosen that. But because I've got the top bolt on there still, it won't. If you undo the top bolt, you can't do this. So I want to make sure I'm not hitting anything. Everything's out of the way. As we can see, you don't want to be really hitting this hard, and you do not want to be hitting the shock. If it doesn't come down, get something in here to slightly open the gap, and this will come down easier. A bit of lube as well never hurts. I'm just really letting the weight of the hammer do this for me. And there we go. It's off. Now we get the car down and take the top bolt off. Right, as we can see, this is the top of the shock, 21mm. And then the shock should just fall out. Pull up the bolt, hold the shock from underneath, and just release this. And then the shock will come out. Lovely. Now for the scary bit, compressing it. Don't like compressing shocks. Right, I have, like I've shown you in other videos, an air one. Just not a nice feeling. But when this starts getting up, I'm going to move away. That's not really enough, but it's going to be okay for this one because the spring is actually broke. 21mm long reach. Should really be careful. This is, and I'm going to grab the top of the shock with vice grips. Now I know people are going to be, you can't do that, you can't do that. If you was to grab the bottom of the shock with the vice grips, yes, you'll destroy your shocks. But up here, they never, this part never goes past the seals. So I'm all right to do it. Now, what you do need to do is just make sure you remember which way all this goes back together. We have a bolt inside here, so make sure you get the shock top the right way round. Don't get it mixed up. The way I like to do is keep everything together. this bearing next, put it on the bottom so you know you can't go wrong. If you keep it like that, you know which order to put it back in. And there we go. Now for the new one. And there we go, one torsion bar broke according to the NCT. Funny looking torsion bar. I'd call that a spring. Shiny new one. Now again, I've got to put this back in the right place so I know it's gonna compress enough. I think that is really my best place there. Compressing springs is so dangerous. So make sure I got it in the right place, and then you keep the old boat race out of the way. This is the worst part now, bending down close to it to get it in. I hate doing shocks. Get that there, and now put this back the right way so you know you can't go wrong. Line up the bottom of the shock where it's supposed to be, which is just there. And get this done as quickly as possible, but safe. Lovely. Now I'm just going to check that it's okay with the bottom of the shock, which it is there. Release it a bit of the way. Just make sure it's all lined up, and then go the full way. And there you do it. I hate doing them, but there you go. Now, let's put it back. Right, hopefully you can see this. All I've done is I've just put the shock back up in its place, and I've tightened that 21mm nut just by hand. And I've just put it back into the actual hub here. Now, this can be quite hard to get back in. Because we need, as you can see, there's about 2 inches there where this needs to completely slot in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my gearbox stand, and I'm running out of memory card now. Anyway, I'm going to get my gearbox stand, put pressure under here, under the actual disc, which will then allow that to push in. And if you don't obviously have that, you can always use a jack. So just jack up the bottom here, and that'll put pressure in. What I'm going to do is I'll turn the camera once I've got this 2 inches down. There's no point me showing you. It's just putting pressure on here, hitting this slightly with the hammer here, the same way we took it off, and that will actually push it back in. A bit of lube around here, and we'll all be sorted. I'll turn the camera back on once I've done that. Right, now hopefully you can see me. I'm running out of light and I can't get enough of it at the minute. I'm going to put the ball joint in next. I've essentially just put the bolt back through there. We've closed it together. Nothing really to see. Like I said, you just use a jack. You do that yourself. Now with the ball joint, there is a left and a right ball joint. You'll see there's an R written on it. So don't, if you're replacing both of them, don't get them mixed up. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. But the easiest way really, and I'll try and film it, is I'm going to put the bottom in first. So I'm essentially going to put it into the wishbone first and just put the bolts in loosely, and then kind of push the wishbone down to slot that in the hole. I'll try and film it, but I might get in the way a little bit. You get the idea. So that's now in. You get everything new with it. So we get the new bolts and washers. Let's put them in. just roughly by hand. It's not, don't need to be tight yet. Put all them 3 in. Move that out of the way for the 3rd one. There. Now, that's all 3 in, just loosely, but they're in. Now hopefully I should be able to push down this and then slide this over the top, which I can do, I hope. There we go. Now, put the new lock washer on the top. So when it goes up all the way, you can't get the nut in. So then you need it up a little bit of the way. Screw the nut in. There we go. Now, it's in. Lovely. Now again, I'll do the same thing, but you see I'm going to be in the way unfortunately with this now. I'm just using the axle stand to put pressure on the ball joint, so when I spin it, it doesn't completely spin, but unfortunately I need it turned this way so I can turn it and actually, well actually no, I can do it that way. I don't know if you can see that in there, but should get the idea. It's going to be a 19mm. So I'm just going to keep screwing this until it's all the way tight. As you can see, it's really as simple as that. And if you are on the floor, you can just use a jack exactly the same way as this, because this is essentially what it is. There's no point in me showing this. All I'm going to do is tighten that bolt and tighten these 3 13mm bolts. No point in really showing you that. Once I've done that, we'll turn the camera back on and we're nearly finished. Go home. Yeah. Right. Now time for the drop link. As we can see, we've got metal ones. Like I said, doesn't matter metal or plastic. They're both just as strong as each other. So nothing really different. You get a new bolt, but you don't get a new nut. Don't understand that, but anyway. And this is really nice and easy. Just slot that in, put the bottom bolt in. What I might do first, thinking about it, is do the debushing, because it's handy to have that bit of room movement in the anti-roll bar than it is if I put that on. So this one I'm not going to be able to film because I'm just not going to be able to get it. It's just too tight. But what I got to do is I got to put this debushing over the anti-roll bar, slot this bracket into the hole and then lift it forward. It's right in there. I can't film it. It's very simple. Once you're doing it yourself, you'll see, and just one bolt goes in at the top. It's really simple. As soon as I get that on, we'll turn the camera back on and we'll do the rest. Right, I've got the debushing on. Like I said, you'll see, as soon as you start doing it, you'll kind of see. All I've got left to do is put this bottom 16mm bolt on the drop link. Tighten that up. Put on the track rod end. Again, that's just screwing a bolt, screwing back on the wheel. It really is as simple as that. There's no point me showing you that because this video is going to be quite long anyway. But one thing you do need to do is, once you've done anything with the suspension, is to get it tracked. Now I don't show tracking because not everyone's going to have tracking gauges at home. So what I suggest you do is take it to your local garage and just get them to track it. Even if you think it's okay, just get it tracked, because you will wear your tyres. You've undone bolts, you've slightly altered the geometry of the suspension, it will be out, I can assure you. Even if it feels okay. So just tighten this bolt, tighten the track rod end, and it is done. That's brakes, suspension, springs, all sorts. I can't even remember because it's been such a long day. One thing I did forget is you need to make sure your shock tops are tightened down. So put the whole weight of the car on and just tighten them up. Sorted. So that's really it. That's on a 2004 Golf. It's simple, really. So look, hope it helps. Thumbs up, subscribe and all that. Don't forget, check out our Facebook, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. You can also support us on the GoFundMe project if you want. The link will be down below. But most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. And don't forget, wear your property with pride.